Support comes from ServiceNow. We're for people doing the creative work they actually want to do. That's why this ad was written and read by a real person and not AI. You know what people don't want to do? Boring, busy work. Now with AI agents built into the ServiceNow platform, you can automate millions of repetitive tasks in every corner of your business, IT, HR, and more, so your people can focus on the work that they want to do. That's putting AI agents to work for people. It's your turn. Visit servicenow.com.
TaxAct knows filing your small business taxes can be a nightmare, like the kind where you're being chased by a giant W-2 form and you're running and running, but you can never reach the submit button. Or something like that. So, TaxAct offers Expert Assist with live tax experts to make filing taxes less scary. Now, you can just have pleasant dreams about being chased by other giant, non-threatening paperwork. TaxAct. Let's get them over with.
Well, all right. Welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass Podcast. Kevin and Chuck. Well, it's almost springtime again, and well, we're back with the spring seed starting episode. Basically, getting your stuff ready. What different tricks and tips and things that might make your harvest a little bit better this year. Hopefully we have some new ideas you haven't heard before and some new stuff. And I don't know, get you inspired. The miracle of life, Kevin. Things growing, sprouting up.
Yeah, well, we do this every year, don't we? Like every spring, we at least do one planting. But I mean, as a prepper, it should be one of your standard go-tos is your garden. I think a lot of people overthink it and they think about it being too much of a hassle or, a big time investment. It doesn't have to be, though. It doesn't have to be a big pain in the ass. It can be, 15, 20 minutes a day and providing, saving a lot of money, honestly, because nobody, groceries are still going up. That hasn't changed.
Yeah, they are. That's all I know is the egg production is good at my house.
Yeah, I've got a lot of eggs coming into my house too. They're saying I think it's averaging $4 a dozen now. It's like ridiculous.
It's like $8 some places. It's crazy.
Yeah. A lot more where I'm at. Yeah.
Yeah. I just went. We just went on vacation for this week, so I'm away. And my neighbor, like immediately when I'm like, "Can you check on the house?" He's like, "Well, would it be okay if I went in and got your eggs that hatch, that are not hatching, but that are laying every day? Because that would really help."
Yeah.
And we're like, "All right." So we had a kid stay. We're only a couple hours from my house, like 2 hours, not a big deal. So we had one of the kids had to go back for appointments or whatever and went back halfway through and we dropped her off so we could check on the plants and animals and whatever and came back. And he's like, "Well, there's only one person in the house. Can we keep getting eggs for the rest of the week?" And I'm like, yeah, it's all right. We can do that.
Well, how many eggs are you getting a day? How many chickens do you have?
There are two different questions, but we're getting about eight eggs a day, I think, right now.
Okay.
Still early. Things are just like every day is a little bit more.
Yeah.
We have, I want to say about 20 chickens, probably in that neighborhood.
So you're going to, your egg production's only going up as it gets warmer.
Yeah. No, that was it. We when we were planning on vacation, we just saved for a week and a half, and we were able to put 4 dozen, and like we didn't stop eating eggs. We just stopped giving them away or whatever.
Right.
So it wasn't hard to get ahead. Anyway, so getting the animals ready, that's a good thing too, setting up the new pens, the new things you want to do. Now there's a couple of things to think about. Like one, obviously we'll get into what you want to plant, how, when, whatever. We're not going to scrutinize putting carrots on the third day. And, maybe I think they laid it out in the Bible. Is that a thing that they on the 5th day, you do the carrots, but what would you like to prep? One of the big things is the soil, right? Everyone's like, first is plant. you need to think of where you're going to lay out your garden, what garden beds you're going to use. Do you do a kind of rotation? I know certain plants will, affect the soil and affect next year, things like that. But so you want to decide where everything's going to go. I know one of the early prep things that my wife likes to do is if you don't do like a set cover crop or different things like that, you want to go out and it's not too late in a lot of your colder climates to go out and put cardboard or plastic over the areas you're going to do and just really kill off and make sure there isn't going to be any weeds and that it's easy to go in and tear up. And if you do that for 2 or 3 weeks, that's enough to get a good, start.
Yeah. When it comes to planning out your garden, you want to plan ahead because you don't want to be moving your garden every year. I know I had an issue with, I set up a garden in a nice sunny spot, and about 2-3 years later, there was a tree that had grown high enough that it was blocking out all the morning sun, and I ended up having to take the tree down. It was a healthy tree. I would have rather not done it, but right. But you want to get measurements. You want to lay it out before you start digging anything, and find a nice sunny spot. Morning sun is preferable, but midday sun, afternoon sun's also good.
Mm-hmm.
And like you were saying, one of the things that a lot of people do is raised garden beds.
Yeah.
It's a great idea, but you only really need to do that if your soil is shit. You can just plant right in the ground. You don't have to,
That's the thing.
Yeah, you can just plant seeds. Things grow all over the place. So.
You mean I don't have to go buy all the dirt at the store and then come back and
get, like 15 yards of compost and all that sort of nonsense, and it's just a lot. It can be a lot of money.
My wife likes to call it working the soil, and working the soil is me going to Lowe's buying 50 bags of compost and then carrying them and laying them about the garden, and then she can
just
soil.
Cut them open and then turn it and dump it out.
Work in the soil. It's not quite like that. She actually does a lot of backbreaking work out there, but it turns out we have some pretty big fields.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about soil. So there's two basic types of soil, and you're either at one extreme or the other, or in between someplace. But it's you got clay soil and you got sandy soil, and everybody's kind of in between those two things. Now, clay soil it's full of nutrients, but it has poor drainage, right?
Yes.
It'll hold water well. If you're in a dry climate, clay soil is great.
Now, I am told
compacted too.
You don't want to mix the two. You don't say, well, I have clay, so if I bring in some sand,
right.
I know that you can have a big concrete backyard is what kind of happens.
Yeah.
So
well, you can amend clay soil with organic material compost.
That's the big thing.
And I have a big compost bin. It's one of my little hobbies on the side is composting stuff. Real easy to do. Get a couple of wheelbarrows full every year out of it. So I'm happy with it. Sandy soil, that's the opposite end of things. It's easy to dig, easy to till. It drains freely, but that means you're gonna have to water a little bit more often.
Also a little easier to weed. I have to point that out.
That's true, right? But it's a little bit less. It's a little bit lower in nutrients.
Yes.
As the water runs through and drains through, it takes some of that nutrients out with it. So, that's your also a good way to amend that sandy soil is compost. Mix it in there. Go for the compost every time.
Yep. No, exactly. So one of the things, if you don't know what's going on in your soil and you don't know, whatever, is to kind of get some outside help. So a lot of places have a cooperative extension. Actually, I think every county in the U.S., has a cooperative extension, or at least some resources they can get you to on the state level, if not, in your local county. But so they will actually do free soil testing, although my wife kind of has the you get what you pay for with that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I looked on, I actually typed in because I was curious, here, we know all the people at our cooperative extension where I live. On vacation, I was like, well, for the average person listening, I don't want to give you the wrong advice. So I'm like, I just type in local cooperative extension and my computer pulled up the county where I'm at right now. And I typed in soil testing and nothing came up. So I don't know. I mean, I got the cooperative extension. And so the bottom line is you might have to actually make a phone call and talk to people. And if you're like me, you probably don't like that. I'd rather throw money at a problem than talk to a person, but whatever. So I did go back to the wife and I was like, you're big on soil testing and like that. Who would you, recommend? What would you think? And she said, there's a company, Logan Labs, that's pretty, intense for the hardcore, like good analysis and like that. And I looked it up. They're about $60 for their soil testing. And the thing is with that is it's super thorough and tells you all the deficiencies and like that, but they don't like hold your hand on how to amend it. You know what I'm saying? Like it was funny because it was $60, I think, for the soil testing. And then when I search, how do I analyze it? There's another company that for $60 will tell you what to do. And I'm like, add these things, per acre or whatever. And they calculate it like that. Now you could, in theory, get the $60 lab test and then go back to your cooperative extension and be like, hey, help me through this. What do I do?
Right.
And usually there's somebody there that can really do a good job. They were big on pushing, like, get a grant, get whatever. It's funny. They always, as long as we've been here the last 4 years, my wife's worked very closely with them. And like, it's just kind of a good place for her to network and meet friends, to be honest. Like, she's not really utilizing a lot of their benefits because their big push is, hey, get this grant, do this, but it's like inviting the government into your property. Now, a lot of these people are like her friends and they're cool and, you don't mind them coming over and seeing them, whatever, but it's putting your business out there. I guess that's the fear I had. Right. And cause I'm crazy, paranoid, wear a tinfoil hat,
Yeah. I mean, that's really, kind of our thing,
we're like that. Our deal is to kind of be afraid. So anyway, you can work with them and see what they'll do, but there's different, levels of involvement that you might want to expose. Anyway, I was going to say a lot of her friends ended up applying for these grants, and a lot of them are like, build the high tunnel, build the greenhouse, and then we'll reimburse you. And then now with a lot of the government cuts of spending, a lot of the people aren't getting reimbursed, even though they were approved.
Right.
And it was like, you spent $12,000 and now you're kind of stuck.
Will do.
Yeah. Joke's on you. Sorry. So Logan Labs, I'll put a link in the description. Anyway, they're pretty good. I did look, it was funny. There was one called like RX Soil that looked great. But when I looked them up, they're like, oh, we're not taking any more this season. And I'm like, oh, so that's not really helpful for you guys. I did see one called Grow Smart that did it. And they do like have an interactive display. And so the RX Soil and the Grow Smart both like had ways to deal with it. They were not anywhere near as thorough testing as Logan Labs. And what I mean by that is they don't test for every element, as many, right? So that list gets smaller. And that's something, you need to decide what you're willing to pay for or do. Right. I will say you can spend a lot of money and time guessing and doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And you can buy a lot of, hey, this great fertilizer, it's the miracle for everybody. Hey, this. You can really go wrong and waste money where doing the soil test might be the right answer. Now, I wouldn't do the soil test every year or something. That kind of is ridiculous. But at least as an initial, I would. And honestly, maybe when you think you got it, you might want to check back. Hey, I made all these changes.
Right.
It's been a year, been 2 years. Did anything get better or not? You decide, or maybe you're like, you know what? Now my plants are all awesome, so I don't need to test again.
Yeah.
You do you, right? All right. Sorry, that's my tangent on that.
All right.
But
Now let's talk about it's still early in the spring. I mean, we're kind of a little ahead of the game, especially up where I'm at. I'm in zone 6, I think, and it's a little frosty still. Everything's still frozen, still freezing temperatures. So what do we do? How do we get started? Like I'm eager. So we're going to talk about indoor starting your seeds indoors.
Yes.
Can be a little tricky, can be real simple. You can make it easy. I have grow lights. I have some big windows, that face morning sun. And, I just get my little seeds going. Everybody has their own little tricks. I've seen people use egg cartons and fill the little pockets with soil. And sometimes I buy, when I buy like lettuce and it comes in those little plastic containers.
Yes.
I cut those off and fill it with dirt, poke some holes in the side with the needle and, so it drains properly.
Yep.
But, good ones for starting indoors are lettuce, tomatoes, eggplants, cucumbers, peas, sweet potatoes. I personally find that cucumbers are better just planting them outside, in my opinion.
Yeah. That and any like root vegetable, that kind of stuff, you just direct seed. You just write out and do it right as it goes.
Yeah, outdoors right now, for a lot of places, you can do cabbage, kale, carrots, onions, hardier plants.
Cold weather,
is what you're looking for this early in the season. But another great thing you can do to get started early is cold frames.
Okay.
A lot of people build these cold frames. You can make them yourself. They're really easy. Protects the plants from wind, rain, snow, ice, cold temperatures.
Yeah. Usually something like that. Like you just go find, you go to Craigslist or Marketplace and you find used windows, old windows.
Right. And you can even use use like clear plastic or plexiglass, Right. I find myself, I get nervous that I'm going to end up slamming that cold frame closed too fast and break the window. It hasn't happened to me yet, but it's still
right. Or you're like the heavy winds or whatever. Yeah, I definitely do like door hinges when I do them around the frame, and so that way I can fold them like 180 back,
flip all the way over.
Because when they're kind of teetering up, you need to have a way to make sure the wind isn't going to catch it and smack it back down. Again, that's doable, but it's one more thing to plan out, right?
Right. Now, but like I said, you can use clear plastic. It's not going to work as good as glass. You can use plexiglass, but it's plexiglass kind of hard to work with without making a big mess out of it.
To get the early start, like we do a lot of things. My wife starts seeds. She almost does everything from seed. I don't think we buy like any plants, like as plants, which it makes it hard, but you know what you got and you understand like that. But one of the big things is, oh no, it's going to frost tonight, or oh no, it's cold. So she'll bring them outside all day and let them sit in the sun. And then, we got to, get up and go put them out before it's too hot, and then go get them back in the house before it's. Another thing we did to buy time, just like Kevin in the cold frames, is I built a greenhouse out of just pallets. And then I took like cattle panel, wrapped it around the outside, and then, clear plastic, threw a screen door on it. I think I did it for like $500, which, I mean, it's not free, but it's still not the end of the world either. Right. I think it was maybe even cheaper than that at the time. But anyway, I do have a video that we did that. I'll throw it in the link. I think if you just search Prepping Badass Greenhouse or Survival and Basic Badass Podcast Greenhouse, it'll come up. You can go through like the little steps, but it's kind of straightforward. Like you look at it and you're like, yeah, I see what he did there. It depends on your ability, right? But I do take you through each thing. Like, hey, look, I cut the pallets like this, and it made it super easy. I did learn some tricks. So
yeah, I mean, it is fairly easy to put one together. But you also, again, you want to be conscious of the placement of it. You know what I mean? It has to get direct sun. Otherwise it's not doing what it's supposed to do.
And so one of the things like we learned, I live in North Carolina. I was in New York with Kevin, forever, and then moved down south to escape high taxes and ugly people, whatever it is, And so depending how far south you are, turns out direct sun just because they put that on the seed packet or on your plant. If you live in North Carolina, they don't mean direct sun.
Not direct sun.
Not like the real. And I imagine if you're in like Arizona or Texas, not
even less
bad sun, you know, like a little bit of sun. But yeah, no, exactly. You do want to think of the placement and scope out your yard and realize that, you know, the height of the summer and the winter, the sun is actually in different places, right?
Right.
So you do want to kind of scope that out, like maybe go back to some old pictures of the summer and things like that and lay it out. One of the things I'm thinking about this year is actually digging a hole. I mean, I got a tractor with a bucket, so I might dig a hole and bury it like 3 feet down to keep the cooler temperature of the earth. And so again, that actually helps you on both ends because it uses the earth to regulate.
Right.
And so you can have less hot when it's super hot, but you can also have less cold when it's super cold because the ground kind of keeps it even. So if I do that, I'll make a video and show you guys because I know you usually appreciate that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I will do that is dig that out. I don't really know where I'm going to place it this year. That's one of my big things. I'm sure my wife would tell you I should have already been on it and this should already be built. With the greenhouse
for next winter, dude.
That's right.
That's
for
the
next,
plan.
I'm way ahead. You
way
thought
ahead.
I was way
not behind,
but I was way ahead. Right, exactly. So another thing that we did is like I went on Amazon and I bought like $30 solar fans.
Mm-hmm.
And put those in the greenhouse to kind of keep the air moving out. Because again, it does get so hot in those. Like, and that's it. You hit the height of the day and it just, you know, you're cooking in there. It'll be 120 or something in my greenhouse.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa. But again, it definitely can extend your seeding season. And I got to say, cold frames do so much, especially extending into the fall. Of buying you more time, but also having it protected. It basically protects you from the frost.
Right.
Another thing that's really awesome is, so one of my wife's favorite seed places is called Johnny's Selected Seeds. And I think the website is johnnyseeds.com. If you go on there, one, she really likes their seeds, which, you know, it turns out germination and reliability, all that stuff matters, right? If you go to Growers Library and they have direct seeding guides, I think, and they talk about, you know, planting the garden. Let me see quick. I thought I had it ready and now I'm not as efficient as I was. But basically they have how to plan out your garden, but they also have the planning tools. And so they have a how to plan and plot your season. There they go. Under plant and planning tools, they have a seed starting date calculator. So this is where it's awesome. So you actually type in your spring frost free date, like your first thing, and it will tell you exactly. I'll see if I can share my screen to those of you who are watching it online. That it'll tell you exactly, you know, when you should be setting it out, when you should start the seeds inside, you know, if you're doing that, so you'll have it ready for the right time. And the cool thing is they actually tell you like how many weeks out, you know, it's going to be for each thing. They also tell you kind of how much to plant and what type of things, you know, they go through collards and all the different peas and parsley and mustards and melons and lettuce. And, you know, you can go through the cool stuff. So that's pretty awesome and just something to, you know, think about. To have a calculator that just figures it out is pretty cool.
Right.
You know,
right. And now you have access to things like that. You might not in the future. So it's best to get it done. I feel like I have a good idea just off the top of my head in my area because I've lived here and I've, you know, done gardening for long enough. But I know that, you know, some people have, you know, some people are new to this sort of thing. And it's, you know, it's a good resource to have. Up here, it's usually Easter is my last frost. I usually plant some seeds before that. And sometimes I got to replant. but seeds are cheap. And,
exactly.
It's not that big of a deal.
Like, you do the best you can, and that's now, what's your take on like tilling when you're getting ready for things? Do you till things, Kevin? Do you not?
Well, I mean, this is a great time to, to get to work on doing that. What I like to do is add the compost, early, about this time of the year.
Okay.
And just dig it, turn it over. Just, dig it up and turn it over. Some beds I have that are, year after year, like asparagus, I'm leave it alone. I throw some compost on top, and the asparagus grows every year. But the new plant, tomatoes and things like that, I like to really add the compost early and turn everything over, before things get, before things start growing at all. I'll pull out weeds and things, but really there's not much this time of year, this early in the season.
Right. My big thing, I mean, I think I kind of go with the happy medium of, a little bit, because the big thing is, and I guess, what I always battle with my wife about, because the deal is I want to go out with the tractor and the tiller, and I want to just turn it all. I can make it beautiful brown fields that are, you just put your hand in and scoop up, handfuls and let it drip down, like rain. And I'm like, yeah, this is beautiful. But the problem is when you go in and disrupt it like that, you take the whole balance of bugs and things that should be there. Turns out there's good bugs. Like, it's not just bad, especially on the more microbial level, and the worms and the things in there. There's a lot of good stuff in the soil. And so when you go turn it all over, you just disrupted their world and made everything crazy, where a lot of them die and don't, thrive. So the balance and the happy medium we have, because again, I don't want to be out there weeding and pulling every little thing we're talking about like an acre of garden, and it's like, I can't do it. And then it's like, you just do that by yourself. Then you just go out there and do it. And then you're the bad husband. And
then you're the asshole.
And you don't want to do that. So I'm like, I got this tractor. Let's go turn it over. So I want to make it till it's brown. She's like, all right, go ahead and turn it over, but one time. Don't get crazy. Don't dig down and kill everything. And that's the balance that you need to do in my world, right? To make my mind happy. That's not everybody's. The one trick, I might have mentioned this before to you guys, but one of the tricks I love to do is I have a bunch of oak trees in my yard, and we have a big fenced garden. At the end of the year, I rake all the leaves and I stack them like a foot high in the garden. Like just everything. And then I'll go till it then to kind of put those leaves into the dirt. And then the next year you don't see any leaves. And that's all that free composting happened. It is composting, but it's not your traditional sense with the big pile.
It's kind of more like a
time to work
culture. Is that what they call it? Yeah.
I think that's more wood too.
Yeah. I did a lot of when I set up my beds. This is actually, I should have mentioned this. When I set up a lot of my beds, I basically dug all the dirt out and drug a bunch of rotting wood out of the woods and just threw it all in there and put the dirt back on top. And that wood will hold the moisture, so when you have a long dry spell, that moisture will start coming out of those chunks of wood and keep your soil damp.
Exactly. My wife said that there's kind of mixed reviews on that now. People are starting to look at that as like, maybe it's not that good. But I feel like
those people
have a problem with everything. Those people are stupid.
I disagree. Okay. I wholeheartedly disagree.
There you go.
It works
now
well.
You have the answers. So right from the source, Kevin, the master gardener.
That's right.
So it's funny, my wife can't stop gardening long enough to go do the master gardener course. Like, I can't leave the garden. And it's funny because I'm like, well, you should go do that. Like, this is your world and you're really good at it. And, whatever. But it's funny. Korean farming. There's a lot of different things to look into. You can go down rabbit holes, though, that go forever. Now, I hate to say this when everybody's got forest fires on the mind, because this is like nonstop everywhere anymore. I'm down in the Carolinas. South Carolina was just, all kinds of big crazy, and it's nonstop. But one of the cool things that you can do, if you can pull it off, is when you have all that firewood type debris, you cut down all the trees and cleared land and whatever. If you burn that in the middle of the garden, the soil loves all that carbon that you can throw in there. You're doing the decomposing. Yeah, go ahead.
Potassium. And another great thing about doing it that way is you're taking care of a lot of the bugs. A lot of the stuff that I have a problem with asparagus beetles in my asparagus bed. And every year I'll cut everything down. I'll throw a bunch of dry grass and leaves on top of it and burn it all off. And that'll take care of them for the next year. It'll take care of those eggs and stuff like that. Like you were talking about, a lot of the stuff that's under the soil, in the soil, you want to keep it there. And the fire on top isn't going to damage that.
No,
but it's going to take care of a lot of those pests.
And then as it rains and spreads all that good stuff from the wood and whatever into the soil, it's just going to be awesome. The carbon after you burn it, you have all that.
The word potassium actually comes from the words potash.
Really? I did not know that. See,
it's
Kevin?
full of potassium. Yeah, so it's
Bringing
definitely
out
good for your soil.
All right. But so obviously check with your local burn bans and that nonsense before you do it. And Kevin, the whole world is on fire.
Yeah. Let me say this. If you're going to light your garden on fire, have your garden hose right there and ready. You know what I mean? Like, don't be an asshole about it. Right. But, whatever.
That's the thing. I cut down. I had like and it's funny because I didn't even cut them down. I had 4 60-foot trees in my backyard that were big pine trees. And I just removed everything and put it in a big pile. I had somebody cut it and then I chopped it all up and hauled it away. Right. Just, I was a little like, Well, one, I didn't have a 60-foot lift like this guy did. That's kind of the big thing. Right. But he came over and took care of it. I know if I'd had bigger cojones, I would have cut the tree and dropped it myself.
But there's nothing worse than like dropping a tree on your own house and realizing that you're a dumbass for doing it yourself when you could have just hired somebody that knew what they were doing.
Exactly. And that's kind of the way I felt. I was like, this could be really embarrassing for me when I have the big awkward in my head. Like, dude, I take down trees all the time. And I would take down a 60-foot tree if it was not leaning over my house. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's turns out. And I'm like, oh, you make it look so easy. I can do this. And that's the thing. Like, they go up there and it's like, oh, yeah, I would have done that same thing.
Easy.
But I guess easy, right? The big thing was cutting the limbs that make it lean that way. Like, if you take half the weight off that's pulling it over your house and then drop it, it's a lot easier than he was like, that's the key is to, and I'm like, you know what, dude, your job's safe. Don't worry about it. I'm not, like I said, I'll drop a giant tree in the backyard. The ones that are
if you don't care where it falls, if it doesn't matter where it falls, it's fine. But
I have some dings in my fence that I took a chance.
I've had to replace sections of 2 different fence for over the years with dropping trees myself.
I took a shot, but every year I'm just I used to think I could get better every year. But now it's like, I had a good run, and then I've done 1 or 2 that like went the exact opposite of how I wanted. Another thing I was going to say is I watch the show Homesteader Rescue on Discovery or whatever, and they go through. But like every homestead, they're like, how do you prevent against wildfires? What are you doing about? Like everyone's like, my house is going to burn down. Wildfires are right around the corner. Like it's just. And so just be careful. Think of the different burn bans and things like that, and just kind of pay attention. Just be aware of what you're doing. Problem is when you have 4 60-foot trees worth of pine stacked up in the backyard, you can't like start that fire and then be like, it's getting windy now. I need to slow that down. It doesn't work that way. And so that's where you get into danger. So just something to consider. But I will say cashing in on those leaves and working them into the dirt and the soil and doing that. And obviously I do huge compost piles as well, where I am mixing in the eggshells and the, and the coffee grounds and what we actually did an episode just on compost about mixing the green and the brown and having that proper balance. There's a lot of neat stuff you guys can get into if you want to dig deep into that. But I would say Johnny Seeds does have calculators to lay out your whole garden. They do have sections of, hey, I have a family of 4, or, whatever. It's like a per person plant this many things. My wife would like to point out that when she plants things, a lot of times when they talk about proper spacing of plants, she kind of doubles it. I'm just saying. You got to get that max growth factor in there. You pack them in there. Mm-hmm. Obviously, like a lot of those that you direct seed, you go out and you pick the ones that are, thriving, you leave and you pull out the ones that are not, things like that. But I was like, so you just pick it out till they're at the right level? And she's like, no, I still have twice as much in there because you got to get that thing going. Mm-hmm. She's like, the thing is when they're dense, they end up keeping the bugs and stuff like away. Like it actually has no room for bad things to get in there. Her big thing is inner, I know you always talk about the 3 sisters. So like integrating different plants together, that's really cool. But she does that, but it's not just because the plants help each other on a plant level. The insects protect each other because you'll have different predatory kind of insects that'll keep away the other insects. And it just kind of like takes care of itself. So there's neat things like that. You guys know I like that survival, secret garden of survival and secret greenhouse of survival. There's a lot of cool stuff in there about integrating and things like that you guys might want to check out. But I'll put some books and some different things that really make me happy in the show notes and some links to the other stuff we did. We also did an episode with Sonia Gomez, who is amazing at laying out different gardens and food, laying out your property to kind of get the best world out of it. Awesome if you can pay for her services and have them like lay out your property. That's even cooler. But also you really should check out the episode because she just gives out so much free knowledge. I know a lot of you guys who are, follow the podcast for a while really got a lot out of it. And I know I got a lot of positive feedback on that, on really digging in. So if you want to like really nerd out on soil and stuff, we did a lot of that in that episode. So I'll try and put the compost episode, the greenhouse episode. We had a lot of good things you might want to check out. So that's all. Show ideas, email us some questions, concerns, things you want to hear about. Email us at preppingbadass@gmail.com. Kevin, do you have other concerns this week you need to tell us?
No, that's it. I would like to say there's a couple of books that I've got here. This one is this actually came from Chuck's wife. She gave it to me.
So that's how you know it's the right thing.
It is packed full of great information. I also have the Ultimate Guide to Restarting Civilization. This book has a lot of great stuff on gardening, planting, crop rotation, that sort of stuff. So if you get a chance, there's definitely
that one. We actually have an affiliate link. I'll put that in there.
That's right. You should check it out.
But all right, no, that's awesome. You guys, I really appreciate it. That's what I'm saying. So with that, I would say stay safe, and we will talk to you guys next week.